WWE began airing SmackDown on a weekly basis in August 1999, and just a few episodes in, there was a show where Triple H wrestled 5 times in one night. That's right, 5 times. My name is Jack the Jobber, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, in previous videos in this series, I've covered several latter-day WCW pay-per-views under the mad, anarchic creative reign of head writer Vince Russo. And I was really excited to get away from all that. But guess what? On this episode of SmackDown, which aired September 23rd, 1999, Vince Russo was still with the WWE, or the WWF, as it was known then. Now, of course, it's quite impossible to know just how much influence Vince Russo had over this show, because in the WCW episodes we've looked at, he's been very much the undisputed top dog, he's been the head writer, whereas here, in 99, he was very much still under the thumb of Vince McMahon, of course. But with that said, it's a weird show. So, I'm not saying it's conclusive evidence, but it is a weird show. Triple H wrestled 5 times. Did I mention that? Anyway, there's a load of matches to talk about, loads of different stipulations, and the longest bout of the night is about 6 minutes long. My name's Jack the Jobber. That's what we're in for. My name's Jack the Jobber, and this is Very Weird Wrestling. Intro, intro, intro. A big shout out, as always, to the Patreon people who voted on this episode. Thank you, Patreon people. Your support is never overlooked. And hey, it's World Cup season, and also the season of summertime. So if you fancy some lightweight, kind of football/soccer inspired apparel, check out the link in the description below. Use Jobber15 to get yourself a lovely discount. On with this episode of SmackDown. Oh dear. So the show opens with a promo from this guy, which feels weird, doesn't it? There's no way around that. Feels weird now. And what's also weird in a different way is that this isn't just any Vince McMahon. This is babyface Vince McMahon. Oh good! Everybody's favourite kind of Vince McMahon. So what's the story here then? Why is old Vincey M? Why is he a good guy? Let's have a look at what's going on. Let's have a look. There's a story here. So Vince is feuding with his evil son-in-law, the Game, Triple H, who of course, as many of us will already know, forced his way into a marriage with Stephanie McMahon, Vince's daughter, around this time. And that's where we stand at the time of this show. But a few months after this episode of SmackDown, Stephanie would reveal that she was in cahoots with Triple H all along. Look at them, look how happy they are, look how evil they are, look how happy she is, and oh my god, so cerebral. And unless I'm mistaken, which I could be because there were so many twists and turns at this point in the Attitude Era, but unless I'm mistaken, I think Vince remained a good guy all the way up until WrestleMania 2000, where he screwed The Rock over and sided with Triple H and Stephanie anyway. So he ends up aligned with the people he was feuding with a few months earlier anyway, just to give us like a swerve heelish ending at WrestleMania. What was the point of any of this? I don't think anybody still knows. It's just kind of stuff that happened at this point in the Attitude Era. But then throughout the year 2000, WWE would really tighten up their stories and have like one of the best years in company history from a quality standpoint and probably from a business standpoint as well, I think. And then in 2001, it all went, whoa, it's all gone weird again. That's my history of the WWE in noises form. Anyway, this is before all of that. We're in 1999. Vince is still a face. We don't yet know that Stephanie was in on the plan with Triple H all along. So all we need to worry about right now is that Vince hates Triple H, and also there is no current WWF champion. That is vacant. Here's an interesting thing. People often, rightly, criticize the other Vince Russo, for eventually booking himself to be WCW champion, which obviously is a terrible and ludicrous thing. Really stupid decision, unquestionably bad, and made even worse, in my opinion, by the fact that he didn't even lose the belt to a wrestler. He just vacated it. So he didn't even put anybody over in dropping that title. But about 1 year prior to this creative travesty, turns out Vince McMahon did exactly the same thing. So 1 week before this show that we're talking about today, Vince McMahon won the WWF title in a match against Triple H, thanks to major interference from Stone Cold Steve Austin. Why did Austin do this? I think just to kind of screw with Triple H and screw him out of the title, but also maybe because chaos is a ladder. It's maybe like a mixture of those two things. I don't know if Austin was that devious at this point. I think he just wanted to mess with Triple H. Fair enough. So that was on last week's SmackDown. few days later on Raw, Vince comes out and vacates the title because he's like, oh, shucks, you guys. I'm not a wrestler. I can't be champion. Even though he booked himself to win, even though like out of kayfabe, he definitely made this call. So just like Russo would, perhaps more infamously 1 year later, here, Vince McMahon does the same thing. Vacates the title instead of dropping it to, you know, any wrestler. So just like Russo, Vince McMahon doesn't give anybody like that momentum boost of beating him for the title. And look, I'm not saying that in kayfabe beating Vince McMahon is some like ultimate amazing achievement, but it's the anarchy and chaos of the Attitude Era. Loads of weird things happen. So in this era of ultimate madness and ultimate chaos, the idea of not having somebody wrestle and beat Vince for the belt and just rather sensibly and administratively dropping it instead boggles my mind. So anyway, Vince wins the title on the previous week's SmackDown, then on this week's Raw he comes out, vacates the title, and now we get to this episode of SmackDown. Vince comes out to the ring, opens the show with a promo, and calls out Triple H. Ooh, one, two, just one, wow. I've always had such a guilty, allegiance to my time. I know that Triple H has had multiple better themes. I know that Time to Play the Game is way more fitting and way better a song for Triple H. I know that Line in the Sand, the Evolution theme, is way better than my time. I think it's just because maybe it's the first Triple H theme I remember. And I know it's weird, and I know it maybe hasn't aged that well, but just what? Anyway, here comes Big Paul with China backing him up. He's aligned, of course, with China still at this point. He is set to compete at the Unforgiven pay-per-view in just a few days' time after this show in a 6-way match for the vacant belt. But remember, Vince hates Triple H at this point and wants to do anything he can to stop him from getting in that match. He really wants to stack the deck against Triple H, which is where we get to, the central point of this video and why it is such a weird episode. So even if Triple H does somehow overcome Vince's challenge and make it to Unforgiven, Vince wants to make sure that he is so beaten down by the pay-per-view that he basically stands no chance of winning the belt anyway. And so Vince reveals that Triple H will tonight, in one night, be facing all 5 of his eventual opponents in that 6-way match at the pay-per-view, not 5-on-1, but in 5 individual one-on-one matches. And Triple H does that thing that wrestlers do sometimes when they can't believe some bad news, what? No! What? And not only that, but each of those 5 matches will have a different stipulation, one which benefits the opponent rather than Triple H. This is like some anime tournament arc kind of deal. Isn't it? I've not watched much. And Vince reveals these stipulations right off the bat. He just lists all 5 stipulations. But just for me and you, I think it would be more fun if we waited to find out each stipulation when we arrive at it over the course of this video. That'll be a fun little game, won't it, guys? I'm a desperately lonely individual. And so, the overall kind of challenge that Triple H has to overcome is that he has to win 3 of the 5 matches at least over the course of this SmackDown to advance to that 6-way title match for the vacant belt at Unforgiven. And his first match is right now. Bring out his first opponent. Well, it's the big... You know it's the baby. Why has Vince even given Triple H a chance of getting in the title match if he doesn't want him to win the belt back so much? Good question. And so, the first match of our 5 Triple H matches on the night is Triple H versus The Big Show in a chokeslam challenge match, which basically means the first wrestler to hit a chokeslam on their opponent wins the match. No pinfalls, no submissions, just first one to hit a chokeslam. Yeah, good luck, Paul. You can do it, buddy. This is really in your favour. Oh no, they're both called Paul, aren't they? I meant Triple H. Looks like we've got ourselves a good old-fashioned Paul-off. Paul. Big Show gets in the ring, just immediately headbutts the game. Shibata! Oh yeah, just really quickly, the referee for this one is Harvey Whippleman, because there's a storyline going on that most of the main referees are on strike, so we have replacement refs around this time of Raw and SmackDown. This crops up a little bit later on in the show, plays a very minor role. But if you were thinking this would be a chance to have some really exciting and fun special guest referees, like other members of the roster filling in for the refs who are on strike, you would be mistaken. They're not fun, exciting refs. It's like Harvey Whippleman and Tom Pritchard and stuff. Again, a quite stunning use of kind of boring admin-based realism in the Attitude Era of all times. Anyway, Big Show, big headbutt to start. Triple H fights back and goes for the chokeslam, but he can't do it because the Big Show is the Big Show. So then the Big Show hits Triple H with a chokeslam and wins the match in 1 minute 51 seconds. Wow. Yeah, man, why not? Less than 2 minutes long. You know what? You can keep your 45-minute Iron Man. You know what? Somewhere Pat McAfee is absolutely loving this. Not loving this as in this video. There, no way does Pat McAfee. He's probably too busy, like, doing sports podcast, making money. Making money and doing sports. Such a man who loves old school wrestling. By old school, he means like the mid to late 2000s. Just a brief thing about the chokeslam, right? Because this was a chokeslam challenge and everything. I have such a distinct memory of when I first got into wrestling as a kid, back in like primary school. Every kid, because it was the latter days of the Attitude Era, like every kid in the playground knew about wrestling and loved wrestling. And for some reason, I don't know if this was just unique to my school, the chokeslam was the coolest move. The chokeslam. It's a choke and a slam. What an amazing combination. It's like the Keyblade. Anyway, at school once, I remember we were learning about probability, and we had to like come up with a thing that was like an impossible thing, a very unlikely thing, like a very likely thing, a certainty, and draw little pictures, little illustrations for each, representing each scenario. And that was our task. And one kid, I can't believe that I remember this. One kid, his impossible thing that he chose was, I will be chokeslammed by Kane tomorrow. And his little picture was Kane just absolutely nailing him with a chokeslam. And even then I remember thinking, not impossible though, is it? It's very unlikely. I'll give him that. Not impossible. For all we know, Big Glenn could be on his way to Newcastle right now. Anyway, back to the wrestling. Big Show celebrates by chokeslamming Triple H again, just for fun. He goes for a third chokeslam, but Chyna distracts him, and the game gets away, literally crawling up the ramp to safety. My favourite part of the show so far is that the production team clearly were not aware of when this segment was meant to end, and Big Show just kept going for different chokeslams and stuff. Eventually Triple H got away, so they like reloaded his theme tune several times. So as Triple H is getting out of there, all you can hear is just, well, it's the big, well. Time to say hello to our announce team at ringside. It's Michael Cole and Michael P.S. Hayes. Double Michaels. Double Stooges as well, am I right? Cole throws us to a scene from earlier today, from the referee's strike, which he describes as, he's like, we're about to see some disturbing footage. You know that Vince McMahon fed him that line. Workers' rights? Disgusting. Workers' rights. Oh no! Anyway, we see the refs striking earlier today with a load of like rabid fans turning up in the concourse. Who turns up to excitedly watch the refs on a kayfabe strike? Man, wrestling was hot back then. Anyway, the Dudley boys turn up and they beat down one of the refs, who is Teddy Long, and they do this because Teddy is friends with Farouk, and the Dudley boys are facing Farouk and Bradshaw at the Unforgiven pay-per-view. It all makes sense. And there's no more follow-up to that storyline on this show, so I might as well go ahead and reveal what happens at Unforgiven in a few days after this. The Acolytes would beat the Dudleys after unwanted interference from Stevie Richards, who was like stealing other people's gimmicks at the time, doing kind of like a chameleon sort of deal. Make a YouTube video about that, Stevie Richards. Go on. Phone up your mate. Get James Romero on the phone. Do you think when James Romero answers the phone, even if it's to somebody he knows, he still adopts that very business-like tone at the start of his videos where he's like, hey, Stevie, James here. Anyway, backstage we go, where a baby Chris Jericho, fresh on the scene in the WWF, has jumped over from WCW very recently at this time. He's in the middle of a feud with Ken Shamrock. They are supposed to be having a first blood match at the pay-per-view, but Jericho says, no, I don't want to wait for the pay-per-view. I want to have the first blood match tonight. And it looks like it's going ahead. I'm like, are 5 gimmick matches not enough for one show? Back to the arena, make some noise, X-Pac! X-Pac, think you can tell us what to do? Yes, it's X-Pac, formerly known as Twitter Pac, and I'll have to be honest, I always loved his in-ring pyro that formed an X as he did his pose. X-Pac is in a babyface tag team with Kane at this point and is also about to challenge Mark Henry for the European title. I've met Mark Henry a couple of times actually, just a bit of an exciting tidbit for you there. Isn't that thrilling? Yeah. But you know what's even more thrilling? Michael Cole tells us that this episode of SmackDown is sponsored by Championship Motocross featuring Ricky Carmichael. So real, you'll be pulling your teeth out the dirt. That's the real tagline that he says. The 90s they were so radical and sick. And then, like, weird contrast, Michael Hayes is like, and also it's sponsored by crispy M&Ms. They're oh so tasty and delicious. But before this match begins, they are interrupted by the entrance of D'Lo Brown. Yes, he's doing his head thing. Look at him go. D'Lo is here to join the announce team because he is facing the winner of this match for the European title at Unforgiven, as Mark Henry throws X-Pac 1 million light years into the sky. Mark Henry then does kind of an X-Pac sort of style maneuver, actually, hitting kind of a reverse, kind of a Bronco Buster to the back of X-Pac, who's draped over the ropes. And then Mark Henry just falls so nimbly to the outside of the ring and lands on his feet. Oh, the aerial assassin Mark Henry, is it? Terrifying. X-Pac fights back and hits the real version of the Bronco Buster in the corner, as on commentary D'Lo says, almost wistfully, "Oh man, I've been there before." What, like he's pining for the golden days of summer? Mark Henry gets back on top at this stage, but then distracts himself by talking some trash to D'Lo, which allows X-Pac to send Mark Henry over the top rope to the outside with a big clothesline. And honestly, I have to say at this point, Mark Henry, on this random SmackDown, is bumping his ass off. Unfortunately, that is the end of the match. Mark Henry gets counted out. I would usually be like, oh, what a cheap finish. But honestly, Henry made that clothesline to the outside look so devastating and impactful that I kind of buy it. X-Pac's like, yay! Don't know why. Of course, the title does not change hands on a countout, so he's not the European champion, while the real European champion, Mark Henry, gets into a brawl with D'Lo on the outside. D'Lo gets whipped into the ring post and Mark Henry stands tall, but at the pay-per-view, D'Lo would go on to beat Mark Henry to become a 4-time European champion, breaking, I believe, his own record number of reigns in the process. Why did D'Lo always win that belt? Good for him. Another little backstage segment now, as Luna Vachon is challenging for the women's title at Unforgiven, and she really wants to make it a hardcore match. Ivory accepts this challenge, making it a hardcore match later on this show, but I thought I'd mention it now because there's no more of that. So I'll explain what happens at Unforgiven, yet again. The match at the pay-per-view would basically be like a backstage brawl, one which Ivory would win, retaining the title despite heavy interference from Tori. So Ivory is basically the hardcore queen. She's like Dump Matsumoto. She's the scariest woman alive. War Ivory. Next up, a man I can never seem to escape when I do these reviews. It's The Chosen One. And Miss Kitty with him as well. She's his valet at the time. Jarrett's the IC champion and hates women at this point. That's his character at the minute. Alright then. He bullies a stage manager at ringside because she's a woman, but unfortunately Jarrett's heel persona here is less like terrifying evil heel, it's more like 80s high school bully. Sup loser, and then he like knocks the notes out of her hand and then he's like, no, pick him up, and it's all a little bit cringeworthy, but it's Jarrett, so he manages to do it pretty well. But then, he goes to put the stage manager in the figure 4 leg lock, but Chyna runs in to make the save with a frying pan, clonk, and Jarrett is out. So Chyna's a face in this IC title feud with Jarrett, but she's a heel when she's with Triple H. So we have to keep, and Chyna shows up a lot on this show because she's with Triple H. So there's a lot of flip-flopping between, do we like Chyna, do we not, is she over, is she just Triple H's sidekick? It's the Attitude Era, man. Jeff is rendered unconscious, as I mentioned, by this frying pan shot, and Chyna then puts an apron on him and steals his trunks and then puts the trunks on herself. And I'm like, okay, I kind of get it. I think it's like a who really wears the pants kind of gag. But then they explicitly spell that out for us on commentary. Let the audience do some of the work for themselves, Russo. Sorry, I know that we have no way of verifying that this is Russo. But it certainly feels very Russo. Although maybe it wasn't Russo, because at Unforgiven, Chyna would actually beat Jeff Jarrett, and you have to imagine that if Russo was in charge of this decision, he would probably have had Jarrett win after like a million run-ins, and somehow Bischoff would be involved, and the match would end with Russo and Bischoff and Jarrett gloating over Chyna's prone body, and it's like, we got you again, you stupid mark, sorry. I've been a bit traumatized by all those WCW episodes. But then again, maybe this was Vince Russo. Because despite beating Jarrett, the match would have a dusty finish and Chyna wouldn't actually win the IC title. It's time for the Big Red Machine, Kane. Now, Kane, always kind of more exciting in theory than in practice, but I have to admit that OG masked Kane in the 90s the presentation was absolutely top-notch, wasn't it? He is another one of Triple H's 5 opponents tonight. Full entrance again for the gamer. Full lights, full Chyna's with him and stuff. It's a big proper entrance, even though we've just seen it not that long ago at all. And we just saw Chyna in the last segment. So she went to the back and then came out again with Triple H. Just let her wait at ringside. And this stipulation against Kane is an Inferno match, just on a random SmackDown. God, they really couldn't care less back then, could they? If there was an Inferno match in today's WWE, it would be the Flamin' Hot Cheetos Inferno match, and it would be announced like 8 months before it took place, and in the build, both original participants in the match would get injured, and the eventual winner would be like Jelly Roll. Let me stand next to your fire. Yeah, so Inferno matches are not as exciting as they sound. Usually a bit of a letdown, aren't they? In my opinion, at least. It's like, oh, are they going to go into the fire? No. Oh, this time maybe? No. And again. And like rinse and repeat so many times. So Kane hits a chokeslam and seems about to win, but then he notices something way off in the distance. What's that? That's the wall, brother. No, it's actually his BFF X-Pac, who is in a bad way. Turns out X-Pac has been beaten up by those naughty boys, Undertaker, Viscera, and Mideon. What are they like? They're stupid, that's what they're like. They're stupid and violent. I hate them. Kane hates them too. He tries to save the day by leaping over the flames off the top rope onto Viscera and Mideon on the outside. Wow. Libertarian man does whatever a libertarian chooses or chooses not to do without any government regulations to speak of. Thank you very much. Kane brawls with the ministry guys on the outside, but then Viscera knocks him into the fire from behind and Kane's glove catches on fire and Triple H has won the match without actually really doing anything. But Kane doesn't really care about the match result anymore, and in a moment that's kind of cheesy, but also kind of brilliant as well, I have to admit, Kane chases the heels away with his still burning glove, like he's about to hit a Shoryuken or something. To the back we go. Turns out the heels didn't have to run very far at all to escape Kane, because suddenly they're just doing a very chill backstage interview, and Big Show's joined them and everything, and it's all very relaxed. Now, Taker admits, you know what, yeah, I'm in the six-pack challenge match at Unforgiven, so that means I'm supposed to be one of Triple H's 5 opponents tonight. But I'm the Undertaker. Nobody tells me what to do. Which, yes, you might have noticed, doesn't particularly sound like Phenom Undertaker. Sounds like the American Badass. But how can that be? Because Undertaker didn't debut the American Badass gimmick until like the spring of the following year. So what's going on? Well, this was kind of the weird unofficial beginning of that gimmick. It was kind of like a little test run, I suppose. But it wouldn't fully begin until Judgment Day 2000 when he came back on the bike and everything. Yeah. It wasn't really for me. I don't think I particularly enjoyed it. But I get why he did it. Apparently Undertaker wanted a bit more of like a realistic gimmick to fit in with like the modern day Attitude Era WWF, which I understand. Vince McMahon interrupts this interview and says, "Oh, Undertaker, please wrestle Triple H tonight. I told everybody you would do it, please." And Taker's like, "No, I'm not feeling it, man." And Vince is like, "Right, fine. If you don't wrestle Triple H, I'll remove you from the title match at Unforgiven." And Taker's like, "Yeah, sounds good," and just leaves. This was him, I believe, being written off to like take time to recover from injury or to get surgery or something. And that's one way to write him off, certainly. Kind of buries the point of the show. So we're going to have to find a replacement opponent for Triple H. More on that later on. Here comes Dwayne in his vest and his sweatpants. God, this really is like the early days of SmackDown, isn't it? Now, who cares? It's this new blue brand thing that we're doing. No, I'm not going to wear one of those expensive shirts. Give me the vest. He's also one half of the tag team champions at this point, and he cuts a promo in the ring asking a couple of ringside hockey players if he can borrow the Stanley Cup because he wants to turn it sideways and stick it straight up Triple H, etc., etc. It's basically cheap pop central. They're in Dallas. The Dallas Stars apparently won the '99 Stanley Cup, and it strikes me just how silly babyface promos are sometimes. Not specifically from The Rock, just in wrestling. Like The Rock at this point is the coolest babyface around. Maybe like second behind Steve Austin at the very worst, but The Rock's the man. But if we read between the lines of the promo here, behind all of his bluster and all of his machismo, The Rock is basically saying, "Oh, your hockey team is really good. Can I be your friend?" Anyway, The Rock's interrupted by his fellow tag team champion, Mankind. And in their own unique ways, they both talk about, very charismatically, they both talk about how they're going to kick Triple H's ass tonight. Yeah. Then they are interrupted by Road Dogg. Huge pop for the Road Dogg because he does his introduction and everything. But like, I was still quite blown away. I was like, man, sometimes you just don't quite remember how over Road Dogg was. And of course, he brings out Billy Gunn. But Billy Gunn also gets a gigantic reaction. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Obviously it was going to be Billy Gunn. It's the New Age Outlaws. Why is everybody so surprised? So I did some research. So this is actually the reunion of the New Age Outlaws, who split earlier in the year when Billy betrayed Road Dogg, and then Billy went on to win King of the Ring 99. Now this seemed to be the start of a real singles push for Billy, but it was very abruptly ended when he ran into The Rock at SummerSlam and lost a Kiss My Ass match, which meant he had to, after the match, he had to kiss a large woman's ass. Huh, that's funny. Russo may have had more influence than he might have been running the show. Anyway, Billy's singles push is like majorly on hold now because he's back with Road Dogg. The New Age Outlaws are back together. Very exciting for the crowd and everything, of course. Feels a little bit for Billy like he's like getting back with an ex or something. It's like one of those relationships where like, you know, they shouldn't have got back together. Like Billy's like, yeah man, I'm just happy to be back in the tag division with my boy Road Dogg. Look at those gritted teeth. Yeah, so happy. Anyway, the New Age Outlaws, they want a tag title match right now, and the champions accept, and the match is on. We're straight into it. Billy dominates to start proceedings, but then makes a quite crucial tactical error by running balls first into Mankind's skull, which has to go down as a mistake, certainly. The champions stay on top for a while, and Mankind keeps up this very testes-based offense with an immortal leg drop to the family jewels before promising the ref that it was a shot to the midsection. Don't DQ me, it was just to the midsection. Foley's so good. That's why he's one of the best. Well, that and, you know, the insane bumps and the charisma and the babyface fire and the selling and the legacy and everything, but who cares about any of that? More domination from the champions, and Mankind distracts the referee while The Rock punches Road Dogg in the balls. Does The Rock and Mankind's strategy, do The Rock and Sock connection entirely revolve around attacking their opponent's family jewels? Have I missed this? How did I never know this? The match eventually breaks down as The Rock and Road Dogg brawl on the outside. Rock goes to get back in the ring, but Billy whips Mankind into him and then catches Mankind on the rebound with the Faymaster. 1, 2, 3, new tag team champions in like 6.5 minutes. I think it's the longest match on the show, possibly. It's maybe tied with the main event. What I'm saying is we've basically watched the Omega Okada of SmackDown 1999. And you know what? It gets a huge reaction. And Billy and Road Dogg are having a great time. I take it all back, Billy. Maybe he does belong back with his boy, the Road Dogg. Maybe my ass better call somebody. Whatever that means. In fact, the Outlaws would carry the belts on to Unforgiven, where they would defend against a young Edge and Christian at the pay-per-view, and they would successfully beat Edge and Christian after interference from the Hardy Boys. The tag division, you can tell here, is really on the cusp of its red-hot period, by which I mean the domination of Too Cool. Backstage, Vince is with Mideon and Viscera, or the Voodoo Mince Misera, as I've written here as a joke. What the hell was I thinking? I've done a secondary possible joke underneath for myself as well. I'll read it out. Secondary possible joke. Vince meets with Mideon and Viscera. What a Chikara King of Trios tag team they would be. No, they wouldn't, Jack. No, they absolutely would not. I don't know what I was doing when I wrote this. I think I was sleepy. Anyway, Vince tells them, look, your boss, The Undertaker, isn't really doing what I say, even though I asked him really nicely. So now, please will both of you take on Triple H instead in a handicap match, 2-on-1. And Viscera and Mideon are like, yeah, no worries, Vince. That's all good. We are happy to do that for you. And I am shocked by good conflict resolution, everybody. Really nicely done. Elsewhere, we get a fiery babyface promo from number one heel on the roster, Triple H, who says no matter what odds Vince stacks against him, he will not be broken. He will win at least 3 of the 5 matches tonight, go on to Unforgiven, and win back the WWF Championship. I'm like, why is Triple H making us like it? What's going on? And I'm not the only one confused by the aim of this promo. Chyna's also very confused because she hits us with, I think, the biggest eye roll in the history of television. Right, it's time for Triple H's third match then. Full entrance, obviously. 1, 2. Is this on? I'm getting sick of that. This was meant to be Taker's match, of course. But now it's 2-on-1 against Viscera and Mideon. It's also a casket match. And Triple H is quickly on the back foot, not only because it's a handicap match, but because he's now tired from his 2 previous matches. But he does, because he's cerebral, he does manage to force a miscommunication and causes Viscera to splash Mideon by accident before Chyna also helps him out with a low blow. The game pedigrees both opponents and rolls Mideon into the casket for the win. But wait a second, what the hell are you doing here? Oh, not him. Shane's currently a babyface, just like his dad is at this moment in time, so he wants to help screw Triple H over, and that explains why he then says, Triple H, you haven't won the match yet. You need to get both of your opponents into the casket at the same time. I don't know if Viscera and Mideon would fit into that particular casket at the same time. I guess we are maybe going to find out if Triple H can pull out the win. So yeah, because of this ruling from Shane, the match is still going on. Immediately, Viscera jumps the game. Mate, you took a pedigree about 30 seconds ago and now you're back on your feet, are you? Viscera, I'm going to need maybe some like King's Road Fighting Spirit stuff, maybe then some accumulative damage selling over the course of the match, matching with the ebbs and the flows and the good psychology and everything. Otherwise, I'm afraid your cage match rating is going to plummet, my friend. It's actually not. People on cage match don't care about selling as much as they should. It's a bloody disgrace. There was real feeling behind that. Anyway, Mideon gets out of the casket and holds Triple H down while Viscera hits him with a few splashes and they roll Triple H in for the win. Of his 3 matches so far, the game has lost 2 of them and now needs to win both of his remaining matches to get into the 6-way title match at the pay-per-view. That's a mountain to climb. Can our brave hero Triple H do it? Right, time for Bob Holly then. This is Bob's match. Crash is just accompanying him and he is taking on hardcore champion Al Snow in a hardcore match, but it's a non-title match because Al already has a title match set up at the pay-per-view. Al's opponent at the pay-per-view is going to be the Big Boss Man. We see this clip from Raw a few days before this show of Bob smashing a pitcher into the Big Boss Man's face for some reason. Into his face. CZ Dub, CZ Dub. So this match goes like this. The bell rings, they wrestle for like 10 seconds. Then we cut to the parking lot where the Big Boss Man is cutting a promo on some dogs through a car window. That's because, you might have guessed it, the match between Al Snow and Big Boss Man at the Unforgiven pay-per-view is going to be the now infamous Kennel from Hell match. So this match on SmackDown is being used to hype that, I guess. Sounds worthwhile. Anyway, back in the ring, Al takes control of the match, so Crash tries to interfere. Doesn't go well for him, but it does allow Bob to hit a big Falcon Arrow to pick up the win. A win off a Falcon Arrow, which I was led to believe that nobody kicks out of the Falcon Arrow, and that would apparently be correct, actually. Yes, because he did win with that move. Oh, the meme has failed. Bossman runs in, briefly attacks Bob Holly, but focuses his attack mainly on Al Snow, his pay-per-view opponent. That's right, Bossman doesn't really care about attacking the man who once again smashed a pitcher into his face on Raw a few nights ago. And just to wrap this bit up, Al would indeed go on to heroically win the Kennel from Hell match at Unforgiven. It was almost indescribably bad. Time for Triple H's 4th match. It's a boiler room brawl with Mankind. Ooh, goody. Like a kid on Christmas Day. The referee explains that the first one to leave the boiler room wins, and then he shuts the door. But Triple H is right next to the door, so obviously he just immediately tries to open it again, and he can't get it open. So I assume that means the ref is unfairly holding the door shut from the outside. You know what? We were right all along. Triple H is a big babyface, and he is being screwed here. Anyway, Triple H can't get out the door. Mankind jumps him, and they brawl, and it's very much what you'd expect out of a boiler room brawl, especially a TV one. Things are made of metal and stuff, and they hit each other with some of those, and things are being knocked over and clang, 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 clang. Look at all these nuts and bolts, for example, all over the floor. Oh, who's going to clean those up? And so on. And yes, Foley takes a bump onto the nuts and bolts, of course he does. Apart from that, there's not too much to report. At one stage, these 2 crew members get caught in shot, and they're like, uh-oh, like they're trying to get out of the way and stuff. I think that's my highlight. I think that's pretty good. Mankind clamps on the mandible claw, weakens Triple H, and could feasibly walk out of the boiler room and win the match right now. But he's Mankind, he's not going to do that. Instead, he heads up a level and goes for a running elbow drop down onto Triple H below. But then, an unseen person kind of prods him with a metal pole, and Mankind falls through a table instead. I don't think we ever conclusively find out who was behind this, by the way, but I'm not certain about that. And if anybody out there does indeed know, please let me know in the comment section down below. And you know what, if you're enjoying this video, smash that like button. I'm the YouTuber. Anyway, Triple H crawls out of the room and wins, and he only needs to win his one final match of the night to make it to the 6-way title match at Unforgiven. Now it's time for that first blood match between Ken Shamrock and Y2J. Remember that being set up ages ago? Jericho quite wisely decides to wear full hockey attire for this one, which is actually genius when you think about it. Still, the match begins, and it becomes apparent that Jericho, while he's remembered to wear defensive gear for the First Blood match, he hasn't remembered the other side of the equation. He hasn't remembered that you have to actually muster any kind of offense of his own, because Shamrock beats him all over the place. I think without Jericho yet hitting a single move in the match, his bodyguard around this time, Mr. Hughes, decides enough is enough, I'm going to do a run-in. And he also just immediately gets clobbered by Shamrock. I mean, it's the world's most dangerous man, second most dangerous man behind Steve Blackman, but it's the world's most dangerous man. We know it's Steve really, but Ken's pretty dangerous too. By the way, obviously, I was devastated. When I found out I was going to be doing an episode on a SmackDown from 1999, I was like, Steve's got to be on this. There's no Steve. Anyway, Mr. Hughes' interference maybe doesn't work immediately, but it does buy Y2J enough time to grab his hockey stick and just smash Shamrock repeatedly in the midsection. Mr. Hughes holds Shamrock down while Jericho heads up top and hits a big splash, and that's enough to cause internal bleeding to award the win to Big Chrissy Boy. And I find it weird that, Jericho didn't really land a single blow until he benefited from interference in this match. Shamrock was portrayed as so many levels above him. But this would actually be Shamrock's last ever, I believe, WWE match ever, under quite weird circumstances. Because if we remember from that backstage interview with Jericho earlier on, this was supposed to be at the pay-per-view, but then took place on the Go Home SmackDown instead, and saw Shamrock lose, but not getting pinned or submitted, losing thanks to interference and the First Blood stipulation and everything. So was this feels very much like it was only meant to be a temporary absence. Was Shamrock supposed to come back after this? Anyway, whatever the reason, Shamrock was out of there and back to his MMA career before too long, and Jericho would have to find a new opponent at Unforgiven, and that would turn out to be X-Pac Make Some Noise X-Pac. And X-Pac actually wins that one at the pay-per-view, only via DQ though, thanks again to interference from Mr. Hughes. That feels very last-minute pay-per-view replacement, doesn't it? Feels like it. Almost time for the main event, which is Triple H's final match of the 5. But first, we see Vince McMahon backstage in a bit of an impromptu-seeming meeting with the British Bulldog. Davey Boy says he's been owed a title shot for months now. And apparently that's true because Vince is like, yeah, I guess so, you're right. Yeah, oh God. One sec. Can't do this. Oh, yeah. Davey wants in that 6-way match at Unforgiven, which remember does have a vacant place now because the Undertaker just walked off before, remember? He's had enough of this wrestling crap, so Vince is like, yeah, fine, go for it, I'll put you in, Davey. I have major issues with this, Davey. What are you doing, Davey? Not in a 6-way match, you said you were owed a title shot, Vince agreed, but you've blown that in a 6-way. Even Scott Steiner knows that your chances of win drastic go down. But no, Davey Boy is satisfied on one condition. He gets to referee the main event tonight, Triple H's final match of the 5. And Vince is like, whatever, go for it. I don't care, knock yourself out. He doesn't really say that, but that's the vibe. Vince couldn't care less. So why would Davey want to do this? All I can think, logically, it would make sense that Davey wants to do this to make certain that Triple H loses the deciding match of his best of 5. And that means that he will not be in that match, thereby increasing Davey's chances of becoming champion. That's what I'm thinking at this moment. Turns out not to be the case. Davey gets changed into his referee gear in record time actually. And it's time for his final opponent, The Rock, in a Brahma bull rope stipulation. Very clever. I see what they did there. So, not again. Not again. Yeah, again, the full entrance with Chyna and the lights and the music. I mean, we didn't get it last time because it was that boiler room match with Mankind in the back. I'm imagining now the game just slowly walking to the boiler room with the lights and with his water bottle. But thankfully, we didn't get that. Now, if you expected this main event, the final match of the show, The Rock versus Triple H, to really bring the work rate, which has been kind of lacking overall so far. But if you thought this is going to do it, you would be wrong. It's a walk and brawl, featuring inflatable alien man. Now The Rock gets the better of the brawl, and it turns out the Brahma bull rope stipulation includes falls count anywhere rules, as we see a pinfall attempt on the outside. Is that right? Is that what normal bull rope matches normally do? I don't think so. I don't know. Triple H gains control back inside with just a big knee drop to the balls, possibly fueled by the knowledge somehow that in 20 years' time, The Rock will be messing up Triple H's best-laid WrestleMania plans on a regular basis. And then the game tries to intimidate Davey Boy, who does like Uno reverse and actually intimidates Triple H, who is possibly at this point remembering that Davey Boy has still never truly forgiven him for the events of Survivor Series 97. The Rock retakes control and beats Triple H all the way up to the stage, and Chyna just stands at the other end of the ramp and just watches instead of helping, which leaves her wide open to an attack from behind by Jeff Jarrett with the frying pan from earlier. Jarrett locks in the figure four on a completely unconscious Chyna, and remember, Chyna also managed to completely knock out Jarrett with the frying pan earlier. But it's just a frying pan. Jarrett hit her in the back with it, not the head. Does it have special powers? Is it imbued with dark magic? What's going on? Jarrett runs away and the match works its way back down to the ring. The Rock hits a rock bottom. Surely he's about to win. But then he walks right into a lariato from Davey Boy Smith. What are you doing, Davey? He hits the running power slam. Triple H hits the pedigree and picks up his crucial third win of the night, booking his ticket to that title match at Unforgiven. Now this heel turn from Davey, by the way, is kind of like out of nowhere. My best guess is that it was to fill in for Undertaker's absence as a heel on the roster. Maybe Undertaker's spell on the sidelines was like at quite short notice, I suppose. Again, if anybody knows the wider story, please do let me know down below. Davey celebrates with Triple H and a quite miraculously recovered Chyna to end the show, and Triple H's 5 matches all add up to a total of about 18 minutes. The thing I find more interesting is how weak Triple H looked here. I mean, he's Triple H. He's the king of kings. He's the man who loves winning. Although on the other hand, I do get that, because of all the different stipulations, he was never actually pinned or submitted on this show, despite losing twice. He lost the chokeslam match due to getting chokeslammed. He lost the casket match due to being rolled into the casket, 2-on-1 by the way as well. But even out of the 3 matches he won, one was due to Kane basically abandoning the contest and getting set on fire mid-brawl with the Undertaker's minions. One was due to the interference of a mystery person in the boiler room with the prodding pole. And one was due to Davey Boy's heel turn in the main event. I suppose it kind of makes sense for the heel to weasel his way through the gauntlet, but surely overcoming all of these odds set by an authority figure would be a more effective thing for a babyface to do, right? So I guess the root problem of all of this overall is that Vince McMahon was the authority figure and a babyface at this time. And I also think I just found Triple H's vulnerability here particularly surprising, maybe because I'm so used to seeing him as the guy after this, the guy who rarely lost, rather than kind of like a Miz clone here or whatever, benefiting from interference and just sheer luck. Although I guess this was still a few months before Foley kind of legitimized him with that feud in the early 2000s. Anyway, Triple H gets into that match at Unforgiven, the 6-way title match, with Steve Austin as the special kind of enforcer ref. Of course, it all breaks down, and Triple H gets the win and wins back the title with Austin reluctantly counting the pinfall, and if you watch the footage, the crowd just deflates so rapidly. And I think are a bit confused as well, why has Austin done that? And I don't know. Ah yes, that notorious rule abider, the Texas rattlesnake. So one could definitely argue that because he ended up just winning the belt back at Unforgiven anyway, there was no point taking the belt off him in the first place, and certainly no point in him dropping it to Vince McMahon of all people anyway. He might as well have just kept it all the way through. But then again, I'm not taking into account that it was the Attitude Era, baby. Woohoo! Nothing matters, let's go! Title reigns are counted in hours, not days. In booking style, it's kind of startlingly similar to one of those Vince Russo era WCW pay-per-views. But then one of those little periods of time is remembered as the ultimate worst thing ever, and one is part of the most beloved era in WWE history. It's weird that. Although we have to remember this was just a weekly TV episode, of course, and that the booking style wasn't nearly as bad as the WCW stuff or as all-consuming. Didn't run all the way through the card from top to bottom every single time. There was just quite a lot of it, but it was mostly effective, I think. I guess what I'm trying to say is, unlike those Russo WCW shows, there is still a semblance of a wrestling show here. No, actually, you know what? Our older relatives lied to us. Attitude Era overrated. Attitude Era, Unk is so chopped right now. Whatever that means. Am I the Unk that's so chopped? Anyway, that was the episode of SmackDown where Triple H wrestled 5 times. And I know, he even lost 2 of them. Thank you very much for watching. I have been Jack the Jobber. Do once again like the video if you enjoyed it. Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Give it a share if you want to as well. And I'll be back pretty soon Don't know what the next episode of Very Weird Wrestling will be, but I have no doubts that my Patreon will vote for something horrendous. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you very soon.